Dialed In Angling podcast presented by Onyx Fish and Runnings. Well, this week we're starting to shift gears a little bit and we're going to move a little bit away from fall, although my next guest does a ton of fall fishing. He enjoys getting out muskie fishing, pike fishing as much as I do. So I don't want to completely remove fall fishing from the discussion because I know that's not going to be the case. But we're starting to shift gears and think a little bit about ice. You know, my next guest was also at the recent ice show in Blaine, the first one of the season. Let's introduce him right now. It's Chris Britton from Rapala, a good friend of mine. He does everything ice for Rapala. Chris, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Tony.
Hey, man. First of all, I want to say we got to get some fishing discussion out of there because I know you're chomping at the bit. You've got a trip coming up with your buddies here in the next week. I know you and I have had lots of discussions down at Ron Share Productions last week when we were talking about Dialed In Angling, but we've also had a ton of discussions over the phone about, you know, some trips we still want to accomplish this fall, some things you want to do, some things I want to do. So first of all, let's touch a little bit on that because I want to get that off our chest before we start diving into everything ice. I know you got a trip coming up with your buddies here. You do it annually. You don't have to name the lake, but I think it's pretty cool. You know, it's like right around deer season, Chris makes this fishing trip with his buds. You want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, me and my buds, we've been doing this over 20 years now. I couldn't tell you the exact amount of years, but I know it's over 20. Just an annual trip. We usually do it right after Halloween, depending on how weather and water temps are. That's kind of what we watch the most. Moon phases as well, but we go to Lake Vermilion. I'm not worried about saying the lake at all. Everyone knows how great it is. So, but yeah, it's a great time, and a lot of other anglers are out deer hunting, and we're out there freezing our butts off most of the time and muskie fishing on Vermilion. And then this time of year, everything kind of ramps up for me. You know, a lot of people's fall is September, but mine goes until I can't fish anymore. So this is my favorite time of year.
Oh, for sure, dude. I think for most people now, especially this year, because it was so warm. I mean, I kind of categorize it like, you know, the cabin people, the you know, occasional angler. Their season probably ends around Labor Day. For, you know, to be realistic, they're watching football. They've got kids' sports. Kids are back in school. You know, but for a lot of people that are, you know, avid anglers or would consider themselves avid anglers, or maybe people that just got busy in the summer with kids' sports now can take advantage of getting out in the fall. Yeah, their fall is pretty much September, early October. If it's nice on MEA, they might drag the boat up north, but then that's it. I've seen a dramatic drop off here, especially this year. It's been so nice up until MEA that like this last week now is like a ghost town out there. I mean, there's the DNR's pulling a lot of the docks. There's no one out there. And really surface temperatures have been quite warm for what it generally is this time of year. You know, I think this time of year, surface temperatures should be in the 40s is what I envision, upper 40s, maybe 50 degrees. But, you know, even as of last week, I saw around 50, 51, 52. Mm-hmm. Now, we've had a lot of nighttime lows that are dropping, so I'm hoping that you and your buddies hit this perfect. Can you talk a little bit about surface temperature changes over the last few years? You know, I know some years they're colder than others. I can only imagine. You know, I go on fishing trips in early November, generally just around home. I don't do a ton of destination trips in the fall because I do like to hunt. I love to bird hunt and deer hunt, but I do go out, and I've had times where, you know, I'm thinking about going a particular date, especially right before deer season, and then we get a snow or, you know, freezing rain or whatever. You can't really predict it, but what are some of the changes you've seen over the course of your 20 years going with your buddies? The changes in surface temperatures in general, air temperatures, the bite, all of that stuff.
It used to be a lot colder. The last, I don't know, five plus years or so, it's been warmer than normal. So we've had a couple of years where we went, you know, into the second weekend of November rather than rather than the first, just because we're looking for that low 40s temp, 45, 42, and that's when the Cisco start spawning, and the muskies are obviously chasing those, and little easier to access, and they're kind of putting on a feed bag when that happens, and the bite is better, obviously. So, but there's other factors too, like I mentioned, moon phase, full moon, new moon, those play a role too, especially. So, but yeah, it's been warmer recently than from what I remember. We used to have to shovel out the launches, or shovel out our boats in the morning because they're sitting at the dock and they're full of snow, and we haven't had that sort of happen in quite a while.
Yeah, I always think if you're going on a fishing trip, spring, fall, whenever, especially when you're sort of aiming for a particular surface temperature or a particular variables, whether it's a moon phase or whatever. But like in the spring, for example, when I go out to Green Bay, when I hit the Rainy River, you want to hit when it's ideal, right? It's really hard to put it on a calendar and just say, hey, well, we're going to go, this particular date. It's easier if you're a little more nimble, whereas your group, you guys are seasoned vets, where you can be a lot more nimble on your dates and saying, hey guys, it's been super warm. Let's push it back a little bit. I know for me, like duck hunting, I used to love to go on duck trips, especially late in the season. If you could time it out right before a snowstorm, or let's say Canada had a big front coming down, heading out to northern North Dakota, we would always say, hey, let's just keep our options open for this kind of 2-week time period. And if the conditions are perfect, let's jump on it.
Yeah.
Are you guys that nimble? Whereas you're getting up towards the end of the week, you say, hey guys, let's push it back a week. I mean, kind of how's the mindset? It's hard to get 20 guys to kind of think on the same page. You got 20 different jobs. It's easy for me to say because I'm a fishing guide, and this time of year I'm pretty open. But how do you guys deal with that?
Yeah, it is harder. The older that we get, the harder it is to sort of to jump on the time frame. But we usually make it work. And sometimes weather just trumps all of those other aspects I mentioned before. If we know it's going to snow and it's going to be windy and overcast, and that's when you want to be in the boat and on the water and fishing. That sort of weather in late fall is just absolutely outstanding. So we also look for that too. But yeah, we're not as reactive as we used to be.
That's where you and I differ. I'm looking at the forecast saying, hey, there's a 50-degree day. It's going to be sunny, low wind. Hey, Uncle Gary or my dad, you want to go crappie fishing today? Like, my fall fishing is based around somewhat nice conditions. I'm not looking for those huge snow fronts, blow days. Absolutely not. And I know for muskies, ideally that's what you are looking for. But for me, it's funny when you said that, because I just looked at like my forecast on my phone on my app, and I was like, oh, Wednesday this week looks good. Friday this week looks good, where you would be the opposite.
Yeah. We love it when it's just nasty and horrible weather. That's when it's good.
Sounds like a lot of fun, Chris. I love, as an ice angler, and a deer hunter, obviously, I love those big cold fronts in the fall. But as far as when I get into this time of year, people would probably give me grief about it, but I'm a little more fair weather than that. If it's not absolutely ideal in November, I'm not busting the boat out for a day. However, I do enjoy it. I mean, I can think back a couple of years ago when we had a really extremely warm opening of deer season, and we got a group of guys we hunt with that are part of our deer camp. Me and my buddy Hammer, we've hunted together since we were in college. Our other buddy Dan has been here for a long time. We've had a group of buds that we hang out with at deer camp, and I remember Hammer was texting all of us like a group text at like 9:30 in the morning, and it was already 60 degrees on our deer stand. He's like, we're going crappie fishing. Break out the boat. He's like, let's get off our stands. And everybody was laughing. They're like, it's 8:39 in the morning. He's like, doesn't care. It's sunny and no wind, and the deer aren't moving. Who cares about deer hunting? And so we all got off our stand. We said, okay, 10 o'clock. We all got down. We ended up fishing the rest of the day. We didn't even go out that night, even though it was opening day. It was just so hot. It was like 65, almost 70 degrees. You got to take advantage of that. Whereas Chris Britton, on the other hand, 70 degrees, he's not going out. He's waiting. He's waiting for those snowstorms to hit.
Yeah. And if it's a high bright day and it's sunny, during the day, like the low or the higher light periods, we're probably going to change plans a little bit and walleye fish in between. So we'll musky fish in the morning and then towards evening, and during the day we'll bop around and walleye fish. And everyone knows that the walleye fishing on Vermilion is outstanding too. So it's hard not to do that when the weather isn't right for muskies.
That's fun that you mix it up, because that's something I would do. I would love doing that. I love going to Canada or going on different trips, with my son Robbie or my kids. And we like to mix it up. We like to do multi-species. So, if you can get out there and get a few walleyes, even do a shore launch or whatever you're aiming at there, or just getting some big walleyes in the boat, I'd be down for that. I mean, I love muskie fishing. I love pike fishing. I like all aspects of fishing, but I do like doing the kind of those multi-species trips. It makes it really, really fun. Yeah. And, sort of rewarding. And, I don't know what you guys do, but and I'm sure you're putting in tons of hours muskie fishing, but it's hard to beat a shore lunch in the fall, because knowing it's kind of the end of the season. And yeah, you're probably going to have shore lunches ice fishing, or you're going to bring fish home throughout the season. But I don't bring a ton of fish home. I love fresh shore lunch like that. Or if you're going on a fishing trip to Canada or wherever, doing a walleye fry at night, that's hard to beat, man.
Yeah, walleye fry is hard to beat for sure. We don't really do it on this trip too much, but that's just because we're just musky fishing too much. So it turns into eating in the boat, a sandwich and maybe an apple and some string cheese, and there's our lunch. So.
I know you're way more hardcore than I know muskie anglers that during full moon periods in the fall, I would bump into them on Mille Lacs, and they'd be in Mille Lacs, and the whole bottom of their boat would be full of energy drinks, and they're coming in. It was 6, 7:30, 8 in the morning, maybe when it was getting light in the fall. And I was just going out to do a guide trip. And in the past, I used to do my guide season. I would run my guide season right up to Thursday or Friday before the rifle season. Okay. The Minnesota firearms season. And I would bump into these hardcore muskie guys. And like you said, I mean, they had been living in their boat all night. They had energy drinks all over the bottom of their boat. They're coming wheeling in. I started talking to them and just hey, do you guys raise any fish? Did you catch any fish? Just kind of curious on how they did. And they're yeah, I boated 2 last night, saw, whatever. But yeah, we're heading to Vermilion now. We're going to fish all day on Vermilion, and then, probably fish tonight and then go to, Lake of the Woods or wherever they're headed. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, these guys haven't slept in days. They haven't stopped to eat. They're just living in their boats for the entire, next 3 days during this full moon or whatever it was. And, that's hardcore. That's someone that is so passionate. And that's what I like about some of my friends that are hardcore muskie anglers. I mean, they'll put over, food, nutrition, the trip, sleep to boat a giant. And that's cool to me.
Yeah, that's when they're heavy. So it's fun to do. The older you get, the harder it is. There's a lot of ibuprofen involved, and we probably sleep in a little bit later than we used to, but hey, we still try.
Yeah, right on. Do you, how hardcore are you guys to peak feeding periods? Do you really cling to that? Is that how you kind of plan your day, or is there just a lot of other factors that kind of contribute into when you guys decide you're going to go out and fish?
Yeah, so the fall, the daylight isn't that long. So, we're on the water just before sunrise, and we pull off maybe an hour or two after sunset, in the dark a little bit. But honestly, it's not that long of a day if you think about it, because your daylight that this time of year is a lot shorter than it would be in the summer. So
I didn't know if you guys clung to majors and minors. I know, I used to do a ton of night trolling for walleyes, and I used to live by those majors and minors. So if there was a major at 10 o'clock at night, I mean, I was fishing pretty much straight through. Or I would, do a day trip, come in, eat, maybe chill in my truck for a little bit, and then go back out and take customers out, right at dark, and which dark now is, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then fish through those majors. And man, I could do it back then. I don't know that I could do that today. Maybe for one day, or 2 days, but I'd be pretty wiped out if I did an entire week of that. You'd have to pick me up off the ground.
Yeah, we definitely pay attention to major and minors for sure. So if we have a fish figured out, then that's where we're going on the major for sure.
Okay. Yeah, very cool, man. That's fun. That sounds awesome. I was just at the Mille Lacs Fisheries meeting, and they were talking about some muskie stocking that they're doing on Mille Lacs. Obviously the telemetry study they're doing on Leech Lake. There's been a lot of talk about, just making sure that Minnesota continues to have really good muskie fishing, and I'm all for it. Someone who makes their living walleye fishing, and I love pan fishing. I don't muskie fish as much as I used to. I just think there's such a critical species that we have in our fisheries, not only for tourism, but they're just cool, man. I love catching the occasional muskie throughout the season with my customers, whether it's by accident or whatever. I typically will catch them when I'm bass fishing on Mille Lacs or up on Leech, for example. In the fall, when I'm fishing shallow for walleyes, I catch the occasional muskie. So, I want to see our muskie fisheries succeed, especially now with forward-facing sonar and the amount of pressure that some of these fish are getting. And so to hear that Mille Lacs is ramping up a stocking program on muskies, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am too. I was lucky enough to experience the heydays in the early 2000s on Mille Lacs and Miltona and Vermilion, and when the populations were just outstanding, and there were a ton of big fish and a lot of medium-sized fish, and we used to just have incredible days out there all throughout the year, and it was just the heyday. You don't realize what you have until it's gone. So fishing these days is a lot tougher than it used to be, and there's a lot less muskie anglers for it. Maybe in my generation, there's a good amount of younger anglers that never experienced that, so they don't know what it used to be like. So, but yeah, the more muskies that we have, in my mind, the better it is. And we talked a little bit about this too a while ago, and a lot of our best walleye lakes have muskies in them. So there is some sort of a correlation there, or not too much of a negative effect. I know there's a lot of politics involved too, but.
Yeah, I know it's gotten a bad rap among people in the past where people said, muskies, are you kidding me? I want muskies in my lake. But I can think of so many lakes that I fish in the U.S. and Canada that have really healthy muskie populations, but also have a really healthy walleye population. And I'm excited to see, Gull Lake, for example. They started stocking muskies in Gull Lake. There's a few other lakes where they started stocking muskies. I'm all for it. A lake like Gull Lake can handle it. There's so much bait in that lake. There's tons of tulibies in that lake, which they're primarily targeting throughout the year. You've got a pile of 1 pound bass. There's perch everywhere. There's rock bass everywhere. That lake just has forage just oozing from every corner of that lake. So it can handle stocking some muskies in that lake. And I'm happy they put them in there. I actually caught a few muskies on Gull Lake, and I don't even fish Gull Lake that often, and I have not even thrown a muskie bait on Gull Lake, but I caught them walleye fishing. And the last one I caught, I was just talking to a few of the Nisswa guides earlier this season, and the last one I caught was almost 40 inches, and it's pretty cool to see. I got it on a jerk bait. I was walleye and bass fishing, and I got it on a jerk bait. I was super pumped. My customers were fired up. I love seeing those big fish.
Yeah, it's just it's fun. It's just another thing to chase on a really healthy, productive lake.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here. You and I could talk fall fishing for the rest of this podcast, but I do want to dive in to some new ice product. I know you just are fresh off of the ice show that happened in Blaine this weekend. I want you to talk a little bit about that in detail.
That was the North Metro show. In Ramsey. It was at the Adrenaline Sports Center, and it was a really good show. It's Saturday and Sunday, or it was Saturday and Sunday, and the crowds were good. And what we noticed right away is the crowds are excited to purchase. So they showed up with an idea in their head of what they wanted, and they did it. And there wasn't a lot of tire kicking, and that's always a good sign that people are excited for the ice season to come.
OnX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Quickly filter lakes by species, then select trophy potential, high abundance, keeper potential, or high stocking effort to find the fish you are after in the size and the numbers you are trying to catch. Download from the App Store today to get research tools for the serious anglers and beginners alike. giving you the data to target the right lakes and the confidence to get there. Use tools like recent imagery, fishing hotspot data, or the best-in-class weather features that call out current wind, weather, barometer, moon phase, majors and minors, along with precip and more. onX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you'd never known existed. Download onX Fish Midwest today, the app that is changing the game on ice and open water.
Running's home, farm, and outdoor stores are celebrating 78 years, serving 90 local communities across the upper Midwest, the Northeast, and America's heartland. Running's has everything you and your family need for your home, on the farm, and in the outdoors. Lawn and garden, hardware, farm and ranch supplies, sporting goods, housewares, snacks, and everything for your pets. Go to runnings.com to find one of the 90 locations near you, or shop online anytime at runnings.com. Runnings, your home, farm, and outdoor store.
Yeah, my social media feed has really started to turn a hard corner ever since last weekend's show up there in Ramsey. Sorry, I always lump Ramsey, Blaine, Coon Rapids, Ham Lake all in one. I'm a 2-1-8er, Chris, so you have to forgive me. But when that show happened last weekend, my Facebook feed, my social media feed is starting to shift more ice, not just things that were relative to that show, but I think people are starting to turn that corner. You know, MEA's over. People have deer hunting on the brain, but I love deer season because it's this big ramp up towards deer season, including myself. I love bow hunting. I love gun hunting and stuff with the kids. But after I stare at trees for about a week, I'm ready to start thinking everything ice fishing. So it was really good to hear that people are fired up for the ice season as much as I am.
Yeah, it's a super good indicator because that show, like you said, it's early. It's the earliest ice show that at least that we attend, and it's just a really good gauge or an indicator of what people are excited about or not excited about. And this one, it just seems like this year it's a little bit different than the last two, and they're excited to get after it.
Yeah, and you know, we had such a great ice season last year as far as people being able to get out all season long in different fashions, whether you like getting out in portables, whether you like wheelhouse fishing, whether you like just hole hopping. You were able to do all of the above, right? You could kind of go anywhere. Fishing seemed to be really good last year. Seemed like everywhere I went, the fishing was pretty darn good. And so, yeah, I think people are still they have that in their brain, you know, and it's good to see. I know my son and his buddies have already been talking about ice fishing. I went grouse hunting the other morning with him and his buddy, and that's all they were talking about was like, oh, look at these lakes back in here. We were on the onX map, kind of, you know, obviously we were on state land, and they're like, look at these lakes back here. I'm like, yeah. They're like, I wonder if there's trails, and their whole mindset was like starting to shift towards ice fishing. What were some of the cool things you saw at the show? You know, I wasn't down at the show last weekend. I had some other plans, but what were some of the cool things? What were some of the surprises? I know you said people were buying. You know, what was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, that to me, that was the biggest takeaway is people came right in and went right to the product that they had in their head, and they went right to the till at Thorne Brothers. So it was pretty impressive. I mean, people have been clearly thinking about it for a little bit and what they wanted, and they went and got it. So, and they got it at good deals. That's what shows are all about, really. And yeah, that was my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and it's cool because you know, you and I have talked extensively about shows, but retail, you know, it's really cool to see sort of this build up on social media with new product that's coming out there. Before it was like, oh, you heard about a new product, or you might have, you know, seen a quick ad. Now you're watching videos of it being used. And so I want to jump into the new products that Rapala, VMC, StrikeMaster 13 are coming out with this year. Because a lot of these products I am super fired up about because I got to fish with them all last year. And so, you know, let's start with the Maven, because I know you said the Maven was a real hit at the show down in Ramsey. I'll let you kind of talk about the Maven, and then I'll tell the listeners about my experiences, because I absolutely love that ice auger. I mean,
Yeah. So
if a man can love something like an ice auger, the love that I have for that ice auger is off the charts. I'm not kidding.
yeah, we're extremely excited about it, and it's new from StrikeMaster, and it is called the Maven. Maven comes in 8 and 10-inch options this year. And it's all the stats that you would want a new auger to be, right? It's stronger, faster, lighter, smaller profile. It's all those stats that an ice angler would want in a newer auger. Not that anything from the past, is a negative either. It's just things are evolving, and you're able to get those new specs. And I think that's why people are pretty excited about it.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about our other augers, like the 40V. When that first came out, oh my gosh, that was like the auger for me. Still is. It's a workhorse. It's got the 40-volt battery. You can drill a ton of holes. It really basically buried and put a nail in the coffin for a gas auger for me. That 40V was it. I didn't, at that point further, I was never going to drill with a gas auger again. Then the introduction of the 24 volt. I still, and I'm a huge 24 volt fan because for me, I like the lightness of the 24. The fact that it's super light. I'm always staying on the move. I'm always looking for fish with my customers. I'm always looking for fish with dialed in angling. If I'm using forward facing sonar and I'm drilling holes, Pete and I are always running around for Roach's Guide Service looking for fish. We need something that's light, something that's fast, something that we can keep on the move. And so the 24 volt just sort of became my scouting auger and just was like my auger really over the last few years. I still use the 40V when the ice got super thick, when I went to Canada. But now with the Maven, you have the lightness and speed of that 24 volt in a 40 volt platform. And so
one of the specs that people really enjoyed at the show, or that they're seeing, is so that 24 volt in an 8-inch came in at 14.3 pounds, and that's with a 24 volt battery. This 8-inch Maven comes in at 14 and a half. So it's basically the same size or same weight as the 24 volt, but now you have a 40 volt battery. And that's a really good stat.
Game changer, dude. I know that gets thrown out there all the time, but this truly is a game changer. This changes the way people drill. Changes the way people use their augers, and it's a game changer. It's something that now you've created an auger that a must-have auger. And for me, I was so pumped when I met you last week and got my Maven. I shot the video for Dialed In Angling, sort of the promo video, and it's true. When I started drilling with that last year, that was the auger for me. It was really hard to give that Maven back and hand it back over after we had been shooting with that. Even Pete, Pete, who guides for me at Roach's Guide Service all the time. He's out helping, drilling holes. Pete was in love with the Maven to this point where we've talked about it all summer. He's like, hey, when are we going to start drilling with the Mavens? And then last weekend I was at a benefit for a friend of ours, and the whole conversation was surrounded around ice fishing, but particularly the Maven, because a lot of the videos had dropped for that StrikeMaster Maven, and people were asking me about it and my experience with it. And I was like, you better go get one, because it's going to be the fastest selling auger out there. It is already. I mean, right now we're, like you said, at the show, it was selling like crazy.
Yeah. And, 10-inch is becoming more and more popular. And I think that's just a lot of the wheelhouse and permanent shack folks. The weight on that is 15 and a half pounds for a 10-inch auger. It's just nuts.
That's insanity. And what's cool too is, like, I'm excited to get a ton of holes out of a light auger that's super fast. The fact that it comes with 2 batteries this year and then a 13 inline reel, that's pretty cool. I mean, that just right there, the value of that it sells a lot of people instantly.
Yeah, and that's kind of the idea on introducing a new product. The first year is we like to make the promos really good. And this one, like you said, it includes a second battery, and that's in the box. And then there's a redeemable 13 Fishing inline reel, and that's just handed out at the dealers wherever it's purchased. So pretty cool stuff. And it's a great little reel. People love the inlines, and That one's Maven branded, so it's just kind of a cool promo that we did this year.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's a cool product. It's killer, man. Like you said, it checks all the boxes. I said it in the video. It truly does. It's the auger that I'm going to be drilling with all season long. I can't wait to get it in my hands. Matter of fact, when I brought that Maven home, I was talking to my son Robbie over the phone. I'm like, I got the Maven. And he's like, can I go see it? I'm like, well, I haven't pulled it out of the box yet. And he's like, let's go look at it. Like that's what we did that night. We just looking at this auger, which is cool. Okay, let's move from the StrikeMaster Maven and let's move on to the Nano Rap. Cause that's a bait that I think is super cool, revolutionary. It sort of checks another box in a lot of different categories, whether you're a pan fisherman. I got to use it extensively last year. We filmed it on Dialed and Angling. I think we were kind of one of the first ones to sort of leak that out. If you've never seen it in action, you're going to want to check out our Red Lake Crappie episode on Dialed and Angling, where we're using the Nano Rap to catch giant crappies. I used it a lot late ice last year, not just for crappies, but bluegills, perch. I caught some walleyes on it. I've used it a lot this summer. I filmed with it this summer. Super cool bait. Let's talk a little bit about the Nano Rap, Chris.
Yeah, that one is just, I don't know what it is, but everyone here at Rapala is just in love with the thing. It just kind of gets in your heart. It's the tiniest Rapala lure that we've ever made. It's 3/4 inches and 1/16 ounce. It's got 14 really good colors. I mean, the colors are really good on this little guy. But it, when it's down and you have it in place, it has this really good rocking motion. As it falls, it's side to side. It rattles. And it is a fish catcher. We proved that last year. You proved it mostly. But you had success with it up on Red with the crappie boom up there, and even the really horribly cold days on Hayward that we fished, we were catching with it.
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah. I forgot about the Hayward. We did, I suppose that was the first unveiling. And then, I caught him up on Red. So, yeah, check out the Hayward episode. Obviously, we caught panfish there when it was 30 below. I almost forgot about the Hayward. It was so cold, my brain must have froze, and
my fingers
completely forgot about the Hayward experience. That was fun over there. That Hayward area is super cool to me anyway. But to be able to fish the Nano Rap, that was right, because you had the first samples.
Yep.
We didn't have any in the pack. I think maybe one in the packaging, and so
I had 2, so we had to make it work.
Yeah, we had to make sure we didn't get bit off by pike. That's cool. Yeah, what's cool about that too is it's like, I fish a ton of horizontal baits. Obviously, the love that I have for the jigging wrap, the rip and wrap. And then a few years ago when we downsized our rip and wraps to make number 4s, number 3s, this is sort of that natural progression into that smaller size. So the Nano Rap would be kind of like, a smaller version of even, the slab wrap or the rip and wrap. So, if you like the jig and wrap, rip and wrap, slab wrap, now the Nano Rap, that fills that little corner of your tackle box with the smallest size baits. I have those trays organized, the Rapala trays where it's organized, with number 3, number 4 rip and wraps, number 5, number 6 rip and wraps, number 4, number 5 Nano Wraps, slab wraps. Now I'm going to have the Nano Rap box. So, I like to keep my tackle trays organized in that sense, and I'm a little bit OCD when it comes to this sort of thing. So the Nano Rap will definitely fill those little squares for me. It's particularly the small ones near the bottom where I usually put like dress trebles and that sort of thing. Now I can uniquely fit in my Nano Wraps into those trays.
Yeah, it's a good little bait. I'm super excited to use it a lot, and I'm going to. I'm like you. I like that horizontal sort of stuff, and it's got a great little treble on it, a VMC treble, and you can spike it, and it's a fun little bait to fish.
It is. I fished it a lot last year with underwater cameras. I did sight fishing for perch last year and bluegills late ice. I caught them on the Nano Rap. I caught crappies on it. Like I said, I caught some walleyes late season. Almost got bit off by a pike when I only had a couple in my hand. It's a great bait. And of course, Rapala has the best colors. You're going to love the colors there. Some of the glow colors are fantastic. The naturals, the perch, but then we've got some really bright colors on the spectrum too for those that love fishing, really stained water.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chris, let's get into some VMC product. Pretty excited about some of the new baits. Let's start with the VMC tungsten bug bite. I love the bug bite. And where I really found the bug bite shined for me was last year, late ice, when I finally got some samples. I was out on a crappie bite where I was catching some really giant crappies, but they were super finicky. And they were mainly feeding on invertebrates. If you put a dead stick down with a minnow or tipped a minnow at all, they wanted nothing to do with it. Matter of fact, I put a Nano Rap down, and everywhere else I was crushing them on the Nano Rap. This particular lake, all they wanted was invertebrates. They wanted a small plastic tungsten, but guess what else they wanted? The tungsten bug bite. They absolutely inhaled this bait. I barely even had to tip it. I really like the fact that treble hook moves freely on the bottom of that. It actually adds a lot of action to that bait. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about the VMC tungsten bug bite?
Yeah, that one I'm excited about when things kind of get like you're talking about, things kind of get tough or they're moody. It's cool. It's tungsten, like you said. So what you get there is it drops down quick, and it also gives you a great sonar return. But the other thing with it is it has ribbed wraps, and it's kind of hard to explain without a picture, but it's basically ribbed. As like a larva would look. So it looks and feels like a larva as well. I think those are important to remember is the great sonar return. It drops down quick, and then it also just looks like a larva.
Yeah, it looks exactly almost like a waxworm. Like the ribs on there look like a waxworm. And the cool part is that it has a lot of action, but the colors, what I found last year is like we have some really nice natural like browns in the bug bite, but we also have the really bright glow white and pink. It's a great bait. It's a fantastic bait, not just for crappies. I caught some really big gills on it, and you know how finicky gills can be at times, especially the lake that I was on in particular. It seemed like we weren't quite to that late ice period where the fish are just absolutely dive bombing your baits. I was on a lake that I was sort of scouting for dialed in angling, and the fish were absolutely beautiful, but they were super stingy, and they fell in love with the bug bite, and so did I.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one I had success with it last year. Again, that sort of middle winter time frame, and with walleye fishing, they just wouldn't eat anything I was presenting as far as like a standard walleye lure through the ice. So I actually rigged one of these up. And that was the ticket. They just wanted something smaller, and I didn't tip it with anything, and I barely moved it much, and that was the ticket. So it's a cool little lure.
I can't tell you how many times on Mille Lacs Lake, but even on Winnie, where we start fishing a little bit deeper in the basin, let's say come late January, February, where walleyes will hit a bait that looks like a bloodworm or a larva or something, much more than they'll hit a nice juicy shiner hanging on a dead stick. It happens all the time guiding, daily pretty much, to the point where we've downsized so much using small tungsten jigs, straight tail plastics. This bug bite definitely falls into that category where those fish are out in the basin. They're eating. That's what they're eating. They're eating small larvae. People don't think about that a lot. They think, oh, I need to downsize my spoon or whatever. This is going to be a great option for them as well. It's a good fish catching bait. I used it all summer long. I went and caught whitefish with my Uncle Gary with it. The whitefish absolutely loved it. It's going to be a bait that tulipies love. It's definitely a bait that I'm going to be using this fall. These fish are these crappies in particular are quickly sliding to the edge of these wintering basins. I like the 1-2 punch. In my boat, in the fall, it's a jigging wrap. If they won't hit the jigging wrap, this tungsten bug bite falls quickly. I can get it down there a little quicker than I can a soft plastic. And so when we get into the late season where I'm scouting for fish in these wintering basins, that's one of my go-to lures.
Yep.
All right, another tungsten jig that's new from VMC, and it always seems like every year VMC comes out with better and better and better products on ice. We've got, this trajectory you've been on the last 5 to 6, 7 years where we're starting to create a lot of baits when it comes to ice fishing for VMC. This torpedo spoon I'm in love with. I know I've said it in the past. I got to fish this extensively. If you're a forward-facing sonar user, if you're looking for a bait to get down there quickly, where this is my go-to bait is when I'm looking for fish for customers. I usually rely on like rattle spoon or even a heavier jig wrap to get down there quickly. I'm trying to get reactions out of fish, not just seeing them on forward-facing sonar, but seeing how they're reacting to baits. What's cool about this is this torpedo spoon falls fast, so I'm able to fish fast. And so I'm going from hole to hole to hole, just getting a bait in front of fish to see how aggressive they are, to see if I can move customers there. And I love the fact that it shows up great on forward-facing sonar. It shows up great on 2D sonar, and I can get it down there quickly.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. If you're hole hopping a spot and you put your sonar down, you look through the hole and you see one right away, and you just want to get to it as quick as you can. And sometimes you'll have a flutter spoon on, whatever it is, and you're like, God, just get down there. You know what I mean?
That's the worst. Yeah, that's the worst. When the wind's blowing or your line's iced up, you need something heavy to get down there. I'm with you. That nothing worse than a feeling of seeing a fish just sitting there on your 2D sonar. You're dropping your bait down, and that fish is slowly fading away on your Markham, and you're trying to beat that fish from leaving the area or getting out of the strike zone.
Yeah, and another one another great thing about this lure that a lot of people might not understand or know right away just because it's a new lure, but a lot of times in deep water, a flutter spoon or whatever it is that has a lot of action, the deeper the water or the deeper the lure is in the water, the less action it has. It's just the water's denser. So this one, you don't have to worry about the long drop, and it's going to get down to those depths a lot quicker. And honestly, if it's deep water, like I mentioned, a flutter spoon isn't going to do much anyway. So that's where this one really is going to be key.
Yeah, 100%, Chris. All right, last item for new products is the 13 Baitstriker. Now, I'll let you talk in depth about the product itself, the rod, the reel, but I just want to, kind of lay the groundwork. When it comes to dead sticking, this type of system has changed the way I dead stick. It's become an intricate part of what I do on Dialed In Angling. It's an intricate part of me as a guide service, being mobile with dead sticks and keeping them on the move so I'm not dealing with frozen tip-ups and things like that. I love dead sticking. It's a very important part of ice fishing for most anglers, and this system is optimal.
Yeah, it comes two ways. So you can buy the Baitstrike reel on its own if you already have an array of dead stick rods, or if you don't, you can get it in a combo as well. And the dead stick rod is what you would expect it to be. It's made of glass. It's got the indicator on the front of it and has a lot of good bend and give to it for those bites. The dead sticking thing is really picked up a lot too, because you can do it so many different ways. If you're in your flip over house, a lot of people put their dead stick rod on the roof in between the canvas and the pole. A wire holder on the ice, in your permanent house in a rod holder. It's just used in so many different ways. That this really just is an awesome option to pick from, and obviously it has that switch on it. So the switch basically, what it does is when it's activated, it allows the line just enough resistance for a fish to pull the line out. Obviously, it has an audible click too, so when that does happen, you can hear it and you don't miss it. And then there's a little tension knob on it that can be adjusted for smaller fish, larger fish, bigger bait, smaller bait, whatever. And when you're ready to set the hook, you just engage the reel and the fight's on.
Yeah, I love these reels. These Baitstriker reels. If you're unfamiliar, you're going to want to check out the Baitstriker from 13. It's got the free spool on there. It's changed the game when it comes to dead sticking. And the fact that you can just buy the reels or you can do the combo, that's entirely up to you. I dead stick for all sorts of different species: crappies, walleyes, perch. There's times where the perch gets super finicky and you need that live minnow down there. With forward facing sonar and then also camera technology, you can set the heights of your bait at any depth. Sometimes I like it where the minnows just sort of working on the bottom and just barely touching the bottom. Other times in super clear water, I've got the baits up high. Obviously with forward facing sonar, if you're down viewing or even with 2D, you can set your depth based on where you're seeing the fish in the water column. Or if you're seeing a fish like with forward facing sonar, if you're seeing them come in at a particular depth, you can crank that dead stick up to their depth and then still have that kind of free spool so the fish can eat the bait. Sometimes if you're using a really large bait, it's nice to be able to feed them a little ways. Also, you don't want the fish to feel you. I know, like up on Red Lake, for example, so many times I just keep my dead stick right next to me, either in the otter or even if I'm sitting out on the ice, because if you go to run to a tip up, it spooks the fish, they drop the bait and they take off.
Yeah.
And so, like you were alluding to, Chris, like sticking in the canvas between the poles. I like the little clamp on rod holders that we have at Rapala. Those are fantastic for dead sticking. They sit in there really nicely. You can clamp them on the poles. It's great. I hardly ever go on any sort of ice fishing trip, even when I'm hole hopping, where I'm not bringing dead stick rods. And now these dead stick rods with these Baitstriker reels, they're absolutely phenomenal. They're truly changed the way that I fish. I'm not knocking on tip ups. I still enjoy seeing a flag go up, and I like tip up fishing in certain settings. But truly, for having people reel in fish, and for me, if I've got something set up inside my shelter, like I'm jigging over here with a jigging wrap or a ripping wrap or a spoon, I want a dead stick sitting down there, and that Baitstriker is definitely my go-to. I like the softness of that rod tip, the strike indicator, and then the fact that you can adjust your drag system on there with that bait runner, and it's great.
Yeah, I like to, unlike you, I like to fight them on a rod and reel, and that's just my preference. I use tip ups too, but I just like the dead stick is kind of a more fun way for me to do it in specific instances. But you brought up a good point. Back in the day, before there was this bait clicker thing on it, you better get to it quick, especially if you didn't have any snow on the ice. You better get to it quick, because sometimes you'd see it starting to scoot to the hole, and you had to get there. And like you said, you can spook a fish off of it. This one, you can take your time. You don't have to run to it and scare fish. You can kind of take your time and walk to it, because that bait strike indicator allows it to feed the fish, and you're not in such a hurry. So it's really cool.
Well, and even if in the past when we used to, depending on what you're setting your dead stick in, we used to just leave the spools open. Well, inevitably the wind would catch it or the spool would freeze, and I can't tell you how many dead stick rods that I've lost on the bottom of Mille Lacs Lake or wherever because, somebody didn't open it right, or it froze, or the line, the fish hit it weird and the line kind of coiled or did something goofy. And we either lost the fish or lost the rod. And now with the Baitstriker, where you can just adjust that, depending on how cold it is, the strikes, how the fish are feeding, you can adjust it as light as you want. And it truly is an important part of what I do on the ice is dead sticking. I can't tell you how many times we've, film dialed and angling or just guiding where, the dead sticks sort of save the day. There's times where they won't even look at the dead sticks. And then in that same breath, there's times where they only want the dead stick, or you called them in with a rattle style bait, like a rip and wrap or a jigging wrap or a Nano Rap. And then boom, they saw that live minnow and hit it. So, it's super important, not just for walleye fishing, but pan fishing as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Chris, we're going to wrap up this podcast here. I really appreciate you coming on. A lot of cool new products. You know, anglers, if you're out there, if you're doing a little shopping, if you're watching videos as you're sitting in your deer stand like I am, I'm usually watching fishing videos when I'm in my deer stand, or product videos. You're going to want to check out the StrikeMaster Maven, the new auger. I'm telling you, this thing's going to sell out. It's already sold out at Rapala. It's sold out at StrikeMaster. It's going to sell out in the retailers. Once people start drilling with these things, it's going to be like the 40V. It's going to be like the 24 volt where people have to see it for their own eyes. It's that fast. It's that light. I mean, it's just one of those game changers and a new product that I'm super pumped about.
I was lucky enough to help a little bit with the product testing. Sometimes they just need a body to help punch holes. And I was that guy. But the first thing I noticed with it is how strong it was. And then the breakthrough. You couldn't tell when you broke through the bottom. And to me, that was just eye-opening and really enjoyable experience when using an auger.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was the same for me. I mean, I had heard about it and I was like, oh, cool, a new auger. But, I was like in the middle of the season and, my mind was all over the place, like trying to find bites for dialed and angling and guiding. And like, I was obviously excited to see something new, and I had to talk to Bart Rosen and product development. Kobe was going to bring one up to film with you. I think you brought the first one over to Hayward, and dude, I was blown away. It surpassed my expectations for what the auger should be. And then after drilling with it a whole bunch, it was so hard for me to give up that auger because at that particular point in the season, the ice was thick, and you're tired. You've been lugging around augers. The 24 volt was great, but I was. You go through more batteries at that time of year. Mm-hmm. And so to have something in that sort of 40V platform, but the lightness of, the 24 volt, it is a game changer. People are going to want to check it out. It's super powerful as well. It comes in 8 and 10 inch size. So awesome, Chris. Well, I won't take up much more of your time. I do want to get a fishing report from you when you come back. I am a little jealous you're heading up there. It looks like it's going to be really nice weather for your fishing trip up to Vermilion. I know for me, I've been talking to buddies that have been running up to the Rainy River, sort of having mixed reports just because of the wind. But all in all, it seemed like it was really good. In another week or so, I'm going to tease it out a little bit, but I've been talking about it on this podcast extensively. I'm going to see our buddy Marcus Quam. I'm going to do a little fishing in South Dakota with Marcus, maybe kill a few roosters, not sure yet, but sort of that's the game plan right now. Marcus has been on the show, the podcast. He's a good friend of Dialed and Angling and a good friend of both of you and me. I'm pumped to get out there and fish with him. I know the Mille Lacs bite is really good right now. I was just up on Winnie this week. The walleye bite is like just nuts on fire. The crappies are biting. My Uncle Gary keeps calling me every day. He wants me to go crappie fishing. So that's what I'm going to do this week. I'll have some more fishing reports for the entire listening audience of Dialed and Angling next week. I want to hear about your trip when you get back from Vermilion. Okay, buddy?
Yeah, hopefully it's good. I'll let you know.
It'll be good, dude. You'll be boating muskies, high-fiving. You might even take my advice and relax one night and do a little shore lunch fish fry with the boys. It's good for the soul, my friend.
Yeah, for sure, man. Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everybody tuning in to Dialed and Angling. Until next week, I'm Tony Roach. This has been the Dialed and Angling Podcast.